To know about stem cell research is what are stem cells, and um, a stem cell is an immature cell that has potential to become specialized into different types of cells throughout the body, and that is the definition of a stem cell. And then within these stem cells, there are two basic types. The two basic types are adult and embryonic stem cells, and of the two, embryonic are created when a newly fertilized egg begins to separate, and these can be made into any cell in the entire body. Literally any cell can be made from an embryonic stem cell, and that's also very controversial because it uses a newly fertilized egg. But on the other hand, adult stem cells are found in already developed tissue throughout the body. They act as a repair system and are found in places like the skin, brain, blood, and muscle. And these types of cells are harder to use because of difficulty in growing them in laboratory conditions, and they are not as versatile when it comes to creating new specialized cells out of them. They cannot be made into any cell. There's a limit on that. But the upside to stem cell research is that they are used to cure numerous and often harsh diseases. This is possible because the doctors can watch the cells form and develop and understand how the diseases can happen as well. So next would be the brief history of developments. And so just a little timeline here. The first time stem cells were ever reported was in the mid 1800s, and at this point it was reported that stem cells were the building blocks of life. And that was, and from that point, research and developments were slow until about 1978, as you can see on this timeline on the left, or on the right, I mean. And that's when everything really took off. After that, there were a lot of more discoveries and effort being put into it. And it started with stem cells again being discovered in the human umbilical cord when a baby is born. That's what they cut. And from there, new developments continued to be made every 3 to 5 years until the 90s, where discoveries were made almost every 2 years. One huge one happened in 1995 with the first embryonic stem cell line derived from a primate occurring. And this huge step led to many others, such as a sheep being cloned from stem cells in 1997. But while all these discoveries were great successes and something no one had ever seen before, nothing trumps the excitement that came from Dr. Thompson and Gerhardt's discoveries in 1998. And what happened then was the first embryonic stem cell lines from a human were developed. And that was Thompson that was first able to do that. And then later in the exact same year, Gerhardt achieved germ cells from cells in the Foltel gland as tissue, and in result, pluripotent stem cell lines were created from both of the sources. And all these findings continue to lead us to where we are in the field today.
So the future potential of stem cells, at least as far as scientists hope, really focuses on 4 main goals. So the first one is to help study human development, specifically with the differentiation of cells. So that means that when a baby is in the womb, like when it just starts as cells, all those cells are the same, but then at some point they turn into eye cells or heart cells or lung cells. And that's kind of like a mysterious process that science is starting to figure out. And having these stem cells, these human stem cells, could potentially help to see what sort of chemical change happens in these cells that leads to this differentiation. And they hope that this can also lead to goal number 2, which is to study what causes cell-related diseases. So this is going to be stuff like cancer or other cell related diseases that have to do with cells, like multiplying or reproducing themselves. So like a tumor or something like that. And knowing like how stem cells turn into other cells would hopefully help scientists to find like solutions and causes of these diseases. And then going one step further with that is that once they like think they have an idea, they can use these stem cells. Say they have stem cells and they make an artificial heart or an artificial lung or something like that. They can test new medicine on these artificial organs or artificial like parts of the body instead of testing them on human beings or just testing them on animals and hoping that the effect on animals is the same as the effect on human beings. And then the fourth kind of goal is cell-based therapies, and this has to do with like when somebody has like a bad heart or something like that and they need a donor, the need for these transplantable tissues and organs far outweighs the supply that we have. So instead of just having somebody wait around to receive a compatible heart or compatible organ of any type, we could hopefully just use stem cells to grow an artificial heart or an artificial lung or something like that and transplant that. So then people who have these problems that need a transplant and can't find a donor would no longer have these problems. Just recently, like for example, it may become possible to like generate heart muscle tissue, as I said, and then transplant those cells into patients with some sort of heart disease. So that's the potential that we're hoping that stem cells have. And the related controversy to this has mostly to do with the question of where does life begin? And the basis of this is that in order to get a stem cell, like a stem cell, you either have to, like, they come from an embryo, so an embryo right at the beginning, you know, right when the sperm and egg come together, it'll, you know, double in size and become 4 cells, and these cells are like blank slates, basically. So if you can, like, get an embryo and take out these cells, then you have 4 stem cells, or 8 stem cells, or however many it is, that haven't started differentiating, so they have, like, unlimited potential as to what they could become, which is really exciting for science, but also has led people to say, like, you're killing a potential human baby by doing this, which isn't right. So this should not be allowed. And the response from the government has been that of the debate federal versus private funding. So as of right now, there's no law against stem cell research, like at all. Like stem cell research is fine, but the controversy and the laws have to do with whether the federal government should fund the research of stem cells. And there have been some like limits on what funding the government can do. Like originally there was the Dickey-Wicker Amendment, which banned the use of federal monies for research in which human embryo is destroyed. And since then, like in 2001, George Bush even further restricted it. And he said that federal funds could only be used for research on stem cell lines that had already been established. So there was no more making new stem cells, at least not with federal funding. And then most recently, in 2009, Obama kind of went in the opposite direction to expand stem cell research. And he said he laid out 3 conditions for when the government could fund stem cell research. And he said that the cell had to be from one of the 22 lines in existence, just like Bush had said. He also said that the donors of the embryos could not be paid in any way, and that the donors had to give consent that they knew the embryos were going to research purposes. So, the debate is whether the federal government should fund stem cell research, but there is also private funding, so there's no restriction on if a scientist can get, say, like a billionaire to give him some money for research. However, it's way harder to come across enough money this way, so that's where the debate is, in that stem cell research is going to progress way more if they can get federal funding. However, there is the ethical debate on whether we should be able to destroy a human embryo for this purpose.